Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Call. The November rain hammered against the windows of Perry Bryan's home office as he reviewed the quarterly reports for his aviation consulting firm. At 42, Perry had built a reputation analyzing airline safety protocols, meticulous work that demanded precision but rarely drama. His daughter Emma's laughter drifted upstairs from where she practiced piano, the sound cutting through the storm's static. His phone vibrated. Katrina Crowley's name appeared on the screen. Perry smiled. He and Katrina had been friends since their FAA training days 15 years ago. She'd chosen air traffic control at Denver International. He'd gone into private consulting. They still met for coffee monthly, swapping war stories about the aviation industry's endless bureaucracy. "Kat, is Emma on a plane right now?" Her voice was wrong, tight, shaking. Perry's hand stilled on his pen. "What? No, she's downstairs. Why? Perry!" Katrina's breath came in short bursts. "I need you to listen carefully. A cargo flight just departed Denver, transglobal flight TG447 to Memphis. The pilot manifest lists Emma Catherine Bryan, age 9, her FAA student pilot certificate number." The words didn't compute. Perry stood, his chair rolling backward. "That's impossible. Emma's 9 years old. She doesn't have a pilot's license." "I know that, but someone filed a flight plan using her exact information, her full name, birth date, and a student pilot certificate issued 3 weeks ago under her identity. Perry, this is real. The plane's in the air right now." Perry's mind raced through possibilities. Database error, clerical mistake, identity mix-up. None made sense. Could it be a different Emma Bryan, with the exact same middle name and birthday, and a certificate issued with your home address on file? Katrina's voice cracked. "I flagged it immediately. Security's already involved, but I'm calling you first because, Perry, someone went through significant effort to create a fake pilot identity using your daughter's information. This isn't random." The piano music stopped. Perry heard Emma's footsteps on the stairs. "Dad?" Her voice, bright and innocent. "Can I have a snack?" He covered the phone. "In a minute, sweetheart." To Katrina, "What do I do?" "I've already reported it up the chain. TSA and FBI will be involved within the hour." "But Perry," she paused. "Check on Emma. Make sure she's actually there. Make sure she's safe." Perry's throat tightened. "She's right here. I can hear her." "Good. Keep it that way. And Perry, be careful. Someone who can forge FAA credentials this cleanly knows what they're doing." After hanging up, Perry descended the stairs slowly. Emma sat at the kitchen table, her dark hair in the same ponytail she wore every Tuesday, her school uniform slightly rumpled. Normal. Safe. "Emma, did you go to school today?" She looked up from her drawing. "Yeah, we had that dumb math quiz. I think I did okay." Perry's phone rang again. The school's main office. "Mr. Bryan, this is Principal Marla Bailey. I'm calling about Emma's absence today. We need to discuss." "Absence?" Perry looked at his daughter. "What are you talking about?" "She's right here." A long pause. "Mr. Bryan, Emma was marked absent from all her classes today. Her homeroom teacher called your house at 8:15 and got no answer. We tried your work number around 10. When we couldn't reach you, we assumed Emma was sick." Emma's eyes widened. "Dad, I was at school. I swear. Mrs. Randolph gave us that quiz on fractions. I sat next to Sophia, and we had chicken nuggets for lunch." Perry's pulse hammered. "Principal Bailey, I'll call you back." He knelt before Emma, hands on her shoulders. "I need you to think very carefully. This morning, did anything unusual happen? Anyone talk to you? Any adults you didn't recognize?" "No." Emma's voice went small. "Dad, you're scaring me." His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your mailbox." Perry's blood went cold. Through the window, he saw their mailbox at the end of the driveway, its red flag raised. It had been down when he'd gotten the mail that afternoon. "Emma, go to your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." "Dad, now." He waited until he heard her door close upstairs. Then he grabbed the Louisville Slugger from the hall closet and stepped into the rain. The mailbox contained a single envelope. No stamp. No return address. Just his name in block letters. Inside was a photograph. Emma, standing in front of a small aircraft at what looked like a rural airstrip, wearing a pilot's uniform that fit her perfectly, smiling at the camera. Perry had never seen the photo before. Emma had never worn a pilot's uniform. She'd never been to that airstrip. But the girl in the photo was undeniably his daughter. Beneath the image, a note in the same block letters. "She flew beautifully. Let's talk about what happens next." A phone number. Nothing else. Perry stood in the rain, water streaming down his face, staring at the impossible photograph. Somewhere over Colorado, A cargo plane was flying with his daughter's name on the manifest. In his house, his daughter was safe in her room, and in his hand, evidence that someone had gotten close enough to Emma to photograph her in a uniform she'd never owned. His phone buzzed. Katrina again. TSA just pulled the cargo manifest. The shipment is medical supplies headed to Memphis. But Perry, the flight plan was filed under a shell company that doesn't exist. This wasn't about transporting cargo. Someone used Emma's identity as a test. Perry dialed the number from the note. It rang once. "Hello, Perry." A man's voice. Smooth and unhurried. Vaguely familiar, but Perry couldn't place it. "I assume you found my gift. Who are you? What do you want with my daughter?" "Nothing with Emma. Everything with you." A pause. "Do you remember Randall Huffman?" The name hit Perry like a physical blow. Randall Huffman. 6 years ago. The Cascade aviation disaster. "I'm listening," Perry said quietly. "Good. Then you remember what you did. What you took from me." The voice remained calm, almost pleasant. "I've spent 6 years preparing for this conversation, Perry. 6 years watching you build your comfortable life while mine fell apart. Your daughter is safe. For now. Whether she stays that way depends entirely on whether you're smart enough to understand the game we're about to play. If you touch her, you're not listening. I don't need to touch her. I've already proven I can put her name on a federal flight manifest. I can put it on a lot of things. Police reports, medical records, financial documents. Imagine explaining to CPS why your 9-year-old's name appears on a wire transfer to an offshore account. Or to the FBI why she's listed as a passenger on a private flight to a country without extradition treaties." Perry's hand tightened on the phone. "What do you want?" "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., you're going to receive an email about a very lucrative consulting contract. You're going to accept it. And then, Perry, you're going to do exactly what I tell you. Because if you don't, if you go to the police, if you tell anyone what's happening, Emma's name will appear in places that will destroy both your lives. I have the access, the documentation, and the will to make it happen. Randall, 8 a.m., check your email. And Perry, tell Emma she did great in that math quiz today. 73% on fractions. Not bad for a girl who wasn't supposed to be at school." The line went dead. Perry stood in the rain, the photograph curling in his hand, understanding with perfect clarity that his past had just caught up with him in the worst possible way, and that somewhere in the darkness, Randall Huffman was finally ready to collect on a debt 6 years overdue. Chapter 2. The Debt. Perry didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office, door locked, reviewing every document he could find about the Cascade aviation disaster of 2019. The facts were simple on paper. Cascade Aviation, a regional airline operating budget routes throughout the Mountain West, had been hemorrhaging money. Their maintenance protocols were questionable, their training standards minimal, their insurance barely adequate. Perry, hired by the FAA to conduct a routine safety audit, had found violations extensive enough to warrant immediate grounding of their entire fleet. His report had been devastating. 37 specific violations, from forged maintenance logs to pilots flying with expired certifications. The FAA had revoked Cascade's operating certificate within 48 hours. The airline had collapsed within a week. 1,200 jobs lost. Randall Huffman, Cascade's CEO and primary shareholder, had lost everything. His company, his fortune, his reputation. But that was the sanitized version. Perry pulled up the personal files he'd kept from that investigation, documents he'd never submitted to the FAA. The real story was darker. Randall Huffman hadn't just been cutting corners. He'd been running an elaborate scheme, using Cascade as a front for transporting undocumented cargo under the guise of routine passenger flights. Perry had found evidence of it buried in the maintenance logs. Unexplained weight discrepancies, off-books fuel purchases, flights to unusual destinations. He'd confronted Randall privately, given him a choice. Shut down the operation voluntarily, and Perry would keep the smuggling evidence out of his official report or face federal criminal charges on top of the FAA violations. Randall had chosen shutdown. Perry had kept his word, limiting his report to safety violations. The smuggling operation had never become public, but Randall had still lost everything. And apparently, he'd been watching Perry ever since, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. At 7:45 a.m., Perry sent Emma to school with his sister Doris, a middle school teacher who lived nearby. He'd called Doris at midnight, explained enough to convince her Emma needed protection without revealing the full truth. Doris had agreed without hesitation, no questions asked. At 7:58 a.m., the email arrived. From Transcontinental Aviation Solutions. Subject: Consultation opportunity. Urgent response required. Attachment. Contract.pdf. Mr. Bryan, we represent a consortium of international aviation interests seeking comprehensive safety protocol review for a fleet expansion project. Your reputation in the industry makes you our first choice for this engagement. Compensation, $500,000 for 8 weeks of consultation. Start date, immediate. Location, various sites, domestic and international. Attached contract requires signature by 9 a.m. today to secure the position. Regards, Jonathan Mansfield. Director of Operations Perry opened the contract. It was real, legitimate legal language, proper formatting, even a clause about NDA requirements that seemed reasonable for confidential aviation work. The payment terms were genuine, routed through what appeared to be a legitimate corporate account. But buried in Section 12, Paragraph 4, was a single sentence that made his skin crawl. Consultant agrees to maintain absolute discretion regarding all project details, including client identity, under penalty of immediate contract termination and financial damages not to exceed $2 million. His phone rang, the same unknown number from last night. Good morning, Perry. Did you review the contract? I'm not signing anything until I know what you really want. What I want is simple. You're going to help me rebuild what you destroyed. Cascade Aviation is coming back, under a different name, different ownership structure, but the same fundamental business model. You're going to use your expertise to make it bulletproof from regulatory scrutiny. Perry's stomach turned. You want me to help you set up another smuggling operation? I want you to help me run a legitimate airline that happens to have flexible cargo policies. You'll design the safety protocols, create the documentation, establish the procedures, everything above board, everything passing FAA inspection. What happens in the spaces between your protocols isn't your concern. I'll go to the FBI. Will you? With what evidence? An email offering you legal consulting work? A phone call that I'll deny ever happened? Meanwhile, Emma's name appears on a police report filed yesterday evening in Denver. A 9-year-old girl witnessed at a convenience store buying cigarettes with a fake ID. There's security camera footage, Perry. Very convincing footage. That's impossible. Emma was home with me. And you'll prove that how? By admitting you lied to her school about her absence yesterday? By explaining why your daughter's information is registered with the FAA for a pilot certificate you claim doesn't exist? Randall's voice remained maddeningly calm. I've spent 6 years building this, Perry. Every piece of documentation is flawless. Every digital trail is real. I can make Emma's identity appear anywhere I want, doing anything I want. And the more you fight, the more evidence accumulates. Perry's mind raced. Someone at the FAA is helping you. Several someones, actually. People who lost their jobs when Cascade went under. People who remember that you're the one who destroyed their livelihoods. People who are very motivated to help me return the favor. What's to stop me from signing the contract, then exposing everything? The $2 million penalty clause. Your house, your savings, Emma's college fund. It doesn't cover half of that. You'd be bankrupted. And Emma's name would still be floating through federal databases, attached to activities that would guarantee CPS involvement, maybe criminal investigation. Even if you eventually proved her innocence, the process would destroy her childhood. Is that really the path you want? Perry closed his eyes. Randall had him boxed in perfectly. Fight back, and Emma's identity became collateral damage. Comply, and Perry became an accomplice to whatever criminal operation Randall was planning. How do I know you'll stop once I help you? Perry asked quietly. You don't. But I'm a businessman, not a sadist. I want my airline back. I want my life back. You help me achieve that, keep the operation running smoothly, and eventually this debt is paid. Refuse, and I'll make sure everyone knows your daughter is a very troubled child who's been involved in increasingly concerning activities. The choice is yours. Perry heard his own voice, distant and hollow. I need time to think. You have until 9 a.m. That's 12 minutes. Sign the contract, Perry. Accept the job. We'll discuss the specifics once you're committed. The line went dead. Perry stared at the contract on his screen. Every instinct screamed to fight, to call the police, the FBI, to expose Randall's scheme immediately. But 6 years as an aviation consultant had taught him something crucial. The person who controls the documentation controls the truth. And Randall had spent 6 years building documentation that would bury Emma under a mountain of false evidence. At 8:59 a.m., Perry signed the contract. His phone chimed immediately. A text. Excellent choice. Expect a package at your office within the hour. Inside, you'll find your first assignment. And Perry, Welcome back to the aviation business. Perry sat in the silence of his office, understanding that he'd just committed to helping the man who wanted to destroy him. But he'd also bought time. Time to understand Randall's operation, to identify his accomplices, to find the weakness in his perfect plan. Because Perry had learned something else in 6 years. Every system has vulnerabilities. Every operation has fault lines. And he was going to find Randall if it killed him. Chapter 3. The Package. The package arrived via courier at 10:07 a.m., a standard FedEx delivery to Perry's small office in a business park outside Denver. The courier, a young man named Troy Henson according to his badge, seemed bored and hurried. Perry signed for it, waited until Troy's truck disappeared, then locked his office door. Inside the package, a tablet computer still in its wrapper and a handwritten note. Device is secure and encrypted. Power it on. Follow instructions. Destroy this note. Perry burned the note in his office trash can, watched the paper curl into ash, then powered on the tablet. A video file auto-played. Randall Huffman appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like a luxury office. He'd aged since Perry had last seen him, more gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes, but the same sharp intelligence in his expression. Hello again, Perry. By now you understand the situation. Let me clarify what comes next. Randall stood, walking to a window that showed a distant mountain range. Perry couldn't identify the location. Transcontinental Aviation Solutions is the legitimate front for my operation. On paper, we're a startup airline focused on regional cargo routes in Central and South America. In reality, we're going to be much more. But first, we need to pass FAA certification. That's where you come in. The video cut to drone footage of an airfield, small, remote, surrounded by desert. 3 cargo planes sat on the tarmac, older models but seemingly well-maintained. This is our primary facility, located in Arizona near the Mexican border. Over the next 8 weeks, you're going to design every aspect of our safety protocols, maintenance schedules, training programs, and operational procedures. Everything will be legally compliant. Everything will pass FAA inspection with flying colors. The video cut back to Randall. Your first assignment: travel to this facility, assess the aircraft, and create a preliminary safety audit. I need a report within 72 hours identifying any issues that could jeopardize our FAA certification. Fix them. Document everything. Randall sat down, leaning toward the camera. I know what you're thinking. You'll find something egregious? Report it to the FAA, shut us down before we start. But consider this. The moment you accepted that contract, your email signature went on file with our corporate records. You're the aviation safety consultant of record. Any violations discovered become your responsibility. Any accidents, any failures, they trace back to you. Perry's jaw tightened. And Emma's digital trail continues to grow. This morning, her name appeared on a credit card application in Texas. It was flagged as potential identity theft, of course. But the application exists. Tomorrow, maybe a traffic camera catches a vehicle registered in her name running a red light in New Mexico. Small things, building up. Patterns that suggest something very wrong in the Bryan household. Randall smiled, cold, mirthless. Do your job perfectly, Perry. Make my airline bulletproof. Because the better you perform, the safer Emma becomes. Fail me, cut corners, try to sabotage the operation, and I'll make sure the FAA investigation reveals that you knowingly certified an unsafe airline. Criminal negligence, possible manslaughter if anything goes wrong. Your career, your freedom, your daughter's future, all gone. The video paused, then switched to a map interface showing the Arizona facility's location. Details appeared: address, access codes, contact information for the facility manager. A final message appeared on screen. Flight leaves Denver at 6 p.m. tonight. Ticket is booked under your name. See you in Arizona. Perry sat in his office, the tablet glowing in his hands, and felt the walls closing in. Randall had built the perfect trap. Perry couldn't refuse without endangering Emma. He couldn't sabotage the operation without implicating himself. He couldn't go to the authorities without proof, and Randall controlled all the documentation. But as Perry stared at the map of the Arizona facility, a thought crystallized. Randall had made one mistake. He'd brought Perry inside the operation, and that meant Perry could see it from the inside, could understand how it worked, could find the cracks in Randall's house perfect facade. Perry opened his own laptop, creating an encrypted folder hidden in his system's architecture. He began documenting everything: the emails, the contract, transcripts of Randall's calls, screenshots of the video, evidence, not to turn over to authorities yet, but to build a case, to understand the full scope of Randall's operation before making a move. He called Doris. "How's Emma?" "She's fine. a little confused about why she's staying with me, but fine. Perry, what's going on? I can't explain yet, but I need you to keep her close for a few days. Don't let her out of your sight. If anyone asks about her, anyone at all, you call me immediately. You're scaring me. Good. That means you'll be careful. I'll explain everything when I can, just protect her, please. After hanging up, Perry booked a separate flight to Arizona. Not the one Randall had arranged, but an earlier departure under a different airline. If Randall was tracking him, he wanted to arrive on his own terms. Then he made one more call to the only person he trusted with the truth. Katrina answered on the first ring. Perry, any updates on yesterday's situation? Kat, I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Do you trust anyone at Denver ATC? I mean, really trust them with your life? A long pause. What's happening? Someone inside the FAA is helping create fake documentation, flight manifests, pilot certificates, maybe more. I need to know if there's anyone in the system who might be compromised. Perry, if you have evidence of FAA corruption, you need to report it. I can't. Not yet. But I need your help. Quietly. Unofficially. Katrina's voice dropped. What do you need? Information on a company called Transcontinental Aviation Solutions. Any flight plans they've filed? Any registration documents? Any contact they've had with the FAA? And I need you to keep this between us. No official channels. This is about Emma, isn't it? Yes. And Kat? If anything happens to me, if I disappear, if I die in some convenient accident, I need you to open an envelope I'm going to send you. Inside will be everything I know. You take it straight to the FBI, bypass the FAA completely. Jesus, Perry, what have you gotten into? Something I can't get out of. Not yet. Can you help me? Send me the company name. I'll dig quietly. But Perry, be careful, please. Perry hung up and began packing for Arizona. He had 72 hours to assess Randall's facility, create a safety report, and figure out how to destroy the operation without destroying himself in the process. The tablet chimed. A new message from Randall. By the way, Perry, I hope you're not planning anything foolish. Emma's teacher, Mrs. Randolph, mentioned she seemed distracted today, worried about her dad. I'd hate for her to have more to worry about. Perry's blood ran cold. Randall was watching. Everywhere. But as Perry locked his office and headed for the airport, he allowed himself a grim smile. Randall thought he had all the control. He was about to learn that Perry Bryan didn't just assess aviation safety. He assessed risk. And Randall Huffman had just made himself Perry's highest priority risk assessment. Chapter 4. The Facility. The Arizona desert stretched endlessly under a punishing sun as Perry's rental car approached the facility. The airfield sat 30 miles from the nearest town, accessible only by a 2-lane road that carved through scrubland and rocky outcroppings. Perfect isolation for an operation that didn't want witnesses. The facility itself was larger than Perry expected. 3 hangars, a small control tower, and several administrative buildings arranged around a single runway. The 3 cargo planes he'd seen in Randall's video sat lined up like sleeping predators. A man waited at the security gate. Tall, weathered face, military bearing. His ID badge read Glenn Flowers, Facility Director. Mr. Bryan, right on time. Glenn's handshake was firm, his eyes measuring. Mr. Mansfield said you'd be thorough. Let's get you oriented. Perry noted the name. Mansfield, the signature from the email. How long have you worked for Transcontinental? 6 months. Before that, cargo operations in Afghanistan. Military contract work. Glenn led Perry through the gate. Mr. Mansfield recruited me personally. Said he needed someone who understood logistics in challenging environments. They walked toward the hangars. Up close, the planes showed their age. Older Boeing 737 freighters, probably from the early 2000s. But the exteriors were clean, well-maintained, no obvious corrosion or damage. We've got 12 pilots rotating through, Glenn continued. All former military or regional cargo, experienced crews, good records. Maintenance staff is smaller, 6 mechanics, 2 inspectors. We contract out major overhauls but handle routine work in-house. Perry's trained eye caught details Glenn didn't mention. Security cameras covered every angle of the facility. The perimeter fence was topped with razor wire. And in the distance, partially hidden by one of the hangars, Perry spotted what looked like a fuel truck modified with additional tanks. Far more capacity than a small cargo operation would need. Let's start with the aircraft, Perry said. The first plane was N637TC, tail number clearly visible. Glenn unlocked the cargo door and they climbed inside. The interior was spotless. Perry ran his hand along the bulkhead, checking for stress fractures. He examined the cargo tie-down points, the emergency equipment, the cockpit instruments. Everything appeared regulation compliant. Too compliant. In Perry's experience, working aircraft always had minor issues. Worn seat belts, slightly outdated manuals, coffee stains on instrument panels. The human debris of daily operation. This plane looked staged, like it had been prepared specifically for his inspection. "Who's your lead mechanic?" Perry asked. "Frank Alvarado. 30 years experience. FAA licensed, certified for Boeing maintenance. Want to meet him?" "Eventually. First, I want to see your maintenance logs." They spent 2 hours in the administrative building reviewing documentation. Again, everything was perfect. Too perfect. Maintenance entries logged to the minute. All required inspections completed on schedule. All ADs, airworthiness directives, complied with immediately. Perry had reviewed hundreds of maintenance logs in his career. They were always messy. Technicians' handwriting varied. Some entries were abbreviated. Occasional dates were corrected. These logs were flawless, as if copied from a template rather than created during actual maintenance work. "Glenn, when was the last time one of your planes had a mechanical issue?" Glenn pulled up a file on his computer. 2 weeks ago, number 2 engine on N641TC threw a fault code. Frank traced it to a faulty sensor, replaced it the same day. "Can I see that aircraft?" "It's currently in Memphis, due back tomorrow." Convenient. Perry spent the rest of the day touring the facility, taking notes, asking questions. Glenn answered everything smoothly, no hesitation, no contradictions. The facility ran like clockwork, which meant it was hiding something. At 6 p.m., Glenn showed Perry to a small apartment above one of the administrative buildings. "You'll stay here while you're on site. Meals are provided in the cafeteria. Anything you need, just ask." After Glenn left, Perry swept the apartment for surveillance devices. He found 2 cameras, one in the smoke detector, one in the clock radio, and a microphone hidden in the phone. He left them alone, didn't let on that he'd spotted them. Instead, he opened his laptop and began writing his preliminary report. On screen, he typed what Randall would expect: observations about minor issues, recommendations for procedure improvements, overall assessment that the facility was on track for FAA certification. But in his encrypted folder, he documented his real findings: the staged aircraft, the 2 perfect logs, the suspicious fuel truck, the excessive security for a small cargo operation. And one more thing he'd noticed during the tour. The runway was longer than necessary for the aircraft they supposedly operated. A 737 freighter needed maybe 6,000 feet. This runway stretched nearly 10,000 feet. That was enough for much larger aircraft. At midnight, Perry's tablet chimed. An encrypted video call from Randall. "How's the inspection going?" "The facility is well managed. Some minor issues with documentation formatting, but nothing that would prevent FAA certification." "Good. And your professional opinion, could this operation pass a full regulatory audit?" Perry chose his words carefully. "With the recommendations I'll provide in my final report, yes." "You've built something that looks legitimate." "Looks?" Randall's eyes narrowed. "You think we're faking it?" "I think you're very thorough. Perhaps overly so. Real operations are messier." Randall smiled. "Perceptive. That's why I hired you. Yes, we've staged some aspects for your inspection, but the core operation is genuine. Those planes fly, the cargo moves, the business is real. What I need from you is to make sure every detail is bulletproof when the FAA eventually shows up." "And what exactly are we transporting?" "That's not your concern. Your job is safety protocols, not cargo manifests. If the cargo affects weight distribution, flight planning, or maintenance requirements, it absolutely is my concern." Randall leaned back. "We transport medical supplies, electronics, sometimes perishable goods, all legal, all properly documented. Nothing you need to worry about." He was lying. Perry had spent 6 years learning to read people's tells during safety audits. Randall's eyes shifted microscopically left when he said legal. His pause before properly documented lasted a fraction too long. "I'll need to review cargo manifests for my report," Perry said. "You'll have access to sanitized versions. The actual client information is proprietary. That's not how FAA audits work. It's how this audit works." Randall's voice hardened. "Remember your contract, Perry. You assess what I tell you to assess. You document what I authorize you to document. Step outside those boundaries, and we have a problem." The screen behind Randall shifted, showing a split image. On the left, Emma sitting in Doris's living room reading a book. On the right, a police report with Emma's name, alleging shoplifting at a store in Phoenix. The report was timestamped 30 minutes ago. "That's impossible," Perry said quietly. "She's been with my sister all day." "Yet here's a police report. security footage, a witness statement, all very official, all very damaging if it reaches the wrong people. Randall let the implications hang. Do your job, Perry. Assess the facility. Write your report. Help me pass FAA certification, and Emma's name stops appearing in inconvenient places. The call ended. Perry sat in the dark apartment, cameras watching him, and understood that Randall was escalating. The identity theft was spreading, becoming more serious. Soon it wouldn't just be minor infractions, it would be felonies. Things that would trigger automatic CPS intervention. He opened his encrypted folder and added the new police report information to his growing file. Then he did something risky. He texted Katrina from a burner phone he'd bought at the airport. Need full flight history for 3 aircraft. N637TC, N641TC, N644TC. All flights last 6 months. Don't use official channels. Her response came 15 minutes later. Found them. These planes have been busy. But Perry, their flight patterns don't match normal cargo routes. Lots of trips to border areas. Unusual turnaround times. Something's off. Can you trace where they've been exactly? Working on it. Be careful. Perry erased the text thread and destroyed the burner phone's SIM card. Then he lay awake in the desert darkness, listening to the wind rattle the windows, and planned his next move. Because Randall had made a second mistake. He'd shown Perry the operation from the inside, and now Perry was going to take it apart piece by piece. Chapter 5. The Mechanic. Morning in the Arizona desert arrived with savage heat. Perry was awake at 5 a.m., watching through his window as the facility came to life. Mechanics arrived in a cluster, lunchboxes in hand. Pilots gathered near the hangars, reviewing flight plans. Glenn Flowers walked the perimeter, inspecting the fence line. All very normal. All very orchestrated. Perry waited until Glenn disappeared into the control tower, then made his way to the maintenance hangar. Frank Alvarado was exactly what Glenn had described. 60-something, weathered hands, the confident bearing of someone who'd spent a lifetime around aircraft. He was elbow-deep in an engine cowling when Perry approached. "Mr. Bryan, Glenn said you'd be coming around." Frank didn't look up from his work. "What can I do for you?" "Just want to understand your maintenance workflow. How long have you been with Transcontinental?" "Since the beginning. 6 months, give or take." Frank tightened a bolt with practiced efficiency. "Before that, 28 years with Southwest, then some contract work in South America." "South America? Doing what?" "Keeping old planes flying in difficult conditions. Drug interdiction aircraft mostly. DEA contracts." Frank finally looked at Perry, his eyes sharp and assessing. "You're wondering if I'm dirty, if this whole operation is dirty." Perry appreciated the directness. "Are you?" "I maintain aircraft. That's all I do. All I've ever done. What those aircraft carry isn't my business." Frank wiped his hands on a rag. "But I'll tell you this. Every plane I certify is airworthy. I don't cut corners. I don't fake logs. Whatever else is happening here, the maintenance is real." "The logs are too clean." Frank smiled slightly. "Yeah, that's not me. Glenn has someone who transcribes my work notes into those pretty digital logs. Makes everything look professional for the FAA, but my actual maintenance records are here." He opened a locked cabinet, revealing stacks of grease-stained notebooks. Perry flipped through one. Real handwriting, real corrections, real coffee stains. The messy authenticity he'd expected to see in the official logs. Why keep 2 sets of records? "Because Glenn asked me to. Said the digital logs were for regulatory purposes, the notebooks were for actual work." Frank's expression darkened. "I didn't like it, but I needed the job. My daughter's got medical bills. This gig pays 3 times what I made at Southwest." Perry understood. Frank was compromised by necessity, not malice. A good mechanic caught in a bad operation. "What do you know about the cargo?" "Nothing. I never see it. Planes come in, I inspect them, planes go out. The cargo loading happens at night when I'm not here." "But you must notice things. Weight distribution, fuel requirements, wear patterns." Frank hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I notice things. Like how these planes burn through fuel faster than they should for the distances they're flying. Like how the cargo bay flooring shows impact damage consistent with heavy, dense loads, not medical supplies or electronics. Like how I've found residue in the cargo holds that smells like chemicals but tests clean for aviation fuel. You've tested residue. My daughter's a chemist. I had her run it through a spectrometer. Nothing illegal showed up, but the composition was unusual. Not anything I'd expect from normal cargo." Perry's mind raced. What would create that kind of residue? I don't know, but whatever we're transporting, it's heavy, it's bulky, and it's being handled carefully enough not to leave obvious evidence. Before Perry could respond, voices echoed from the hangar entrance. "Glenn Flowers, accompanied by a woman Perry didn't recognize. "Frank, Mr. Bryan, good morning." Glenn's smile was professionally pleasant. "I'd like you to meet Catherine Kelly, our cargo operations manager. She flew in last night." Catherine was late 40s. Severe business suit, the kind of person who radiated controlled competence. She shook Perry's hand with a grip like steel. "Mr. Bryan, Glenn mentioned you had questions about cargo manifests. I'm authorized to provide you with the documentation you need." She handed Perry a tablet loaded with shipping records. He scrolled through them, all perfectly formatted, all describing legal cargo. Medical equipment to Honduras, electronics to Guatemala, industrial supplies to Panama. All lies, Perry was certain, but professionally executed lies. "These manifests show destination countries," Perry said, "but I need to understand the full supply chain. Where is the cargo originating? Who are the clients?" "That information is proprietary," Catherine said smoothly. "Our clients value their privacy, but I can assure you that all cargo is screened according to TSA protocols, all customs documentation is in order, all international regulations are followed. I'll need to verify that independently for my FAA report." Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, you'll find everything is exactly as it should be. Transcontinental operates with complete transparency within regulatory frameworks." The phrasing was telling. Within regulatory frameworks, meaning they were carefully operating in the spaces between regulations, exploiting loopholes and gray areas. Glenn's radio crackled. "Glenn, we've got inbound traffic. ETA 15 minutes. Copy that." Glenn looked at Perry. "One of our planes is returning from Memphis. You mentioned wanting to see N641TC. Perfect timing." They walked to the tarmac. Perry watched the approach, noting how the aircraft descended, heavier than it should be if returning from a delivery. The landing was controlled but hard, consistent with excess weight. The plane taxied to the hangar. As soon as it stopped, the ground crew appeared with practiced efficiency, chalking the wheels, connecting ground power. But notably, no one approached the cargo door. "We'll need to wait for the manifest to be processed before unloading," Catherine explained. Perry understood. They were waiting for him to leave. "I'd like to inspect the aircraft while it's still loaded. Weight distribution assessment, cargo securing protocols." Catherine and Glenn exchanged a look. "Mr. Bryan," Catherine said carefully, "the cargo on this flight is sensitive. Medical equipment destined for a children's hospital in Guatemala. We need to maintain strict chain of custody. Then I'll observe without disturbing anything. That's standard practice for this type of inspection." "Not today," Glenn's voice was firm. "You can inspect the aircraft after it's unloaded and cleaned. That's the protocol." Perry knew better than to push. "Fine, I'll review the manifest documentation and inspect the plane tomorrow." He walked back toward the administrative building, aware of Catherine's eyes tracking him. Back in his apartment, Perry opened his laptop and started writing. Not his official report, that would be bland and compliant. Instead, he documented everything in his encrypted folder. The too fast fuel consumption, the cargo bay damage, the chemical residue, the heavy landing, the refusal to let him inspect a loaded aircraft. A pattern was emerging. Transcontinental was transporting something heavy, bulky, and valuable enough to justify an elaborate smuggling operation. Not drugs. They'd be lighter and more carefully hidden. Not weapons. Wrong flight patterns and destinations. His phone buzzed. A text from Katrina on a secure app. "Found something. Those planes aren't just flying to Central America. They're making intermediate stops at private airfields in Mexico, very brief turnarounds, then continuing to official destinations. It's a shell game. The cargo they're declaring at official ports of entry isn't what they're actually moving." Perry typed back. "Any idea what they're transporting?" "Still digging." "But Perry, one of those intermediate airfields in Mexico? It's owned by a mining company, Precious Metals Processing." Perry stared at the message as understanding crystallized. Gold. They were smuggling gold. It fit perfectly. Heavy enough to explain the fuel consumption and landing characteristics. Valuable enough to justify the operation's complexity. Legal at origin and destination if properly documented, but illegal if transported without declaring it to customs. Mining companies in Mexico would want to move gold without paying export taxes. Clients in Central America would want to receive it without import duties. Transcontinental was the middleman, using legitimate cargo flights as cover while actually transporting undeclared precious metals. Perry's mind raced through the implications. The scheme was brilliant. Lower risk than drugs, massive profit margins, and if executed correctly, nearly impossible to detect. But it was also federal smuggling, money laundering, and tax evasion on an international scale. His tablet chimed. Another encrypted call from Randall. I hear you've been very thorough today. Just doing the job you hired me for. Catherine said you wanted to inspect a loaded aircraft. That's not necessary. If I'm going to certify this operation's safety, I need to understand cargo handling procedures. You need to understand what I tell you to understand. Randall's voice was ice. You're not a cargo inspector. You're an aviation safety consultant. Stay in your lane. My lane includes cargo weight distribution and securing protocols. That affects aircraft safety. And I'm telling you, those protocols are handled by Catherine's team. Your focus is on aircraft maintenance and pilot procedures. Nothing else. Perry pushed back carefully. If the FAA visits and asks me about cargo operations, I need to have answers. Then you tell them our cargo operations are managed by certified professionals following all applicable regulations. Which is true. Perry, I'm beginning to think you're looking for problems instead of solving them. The screen behind Randall lit up. New image. Emma's name on a credit card statement showing a purchase at a gun store in Colorado. The timestamp was from yesterday. That's insane, Perry said. Emma's 9 years old. No gun store would. And yet there's the transaction record. There's the store security footage showing someone using a card in her name. There's the federal paperwork trail. Randall leaned forward. How much evidence do you think CPS needs before they start investigating? How many red flags before the FBI gets involved in identity fraud? Because Perry, I can create new evidence faster than you can disprove it. Perry's hands clenched. What do you want? I want your preliminary report by tomorrow morning. I want it to confirm that Transcontinental is ready for FAA certification, and I want you to stop asking questions about cargo operations. Do that, and Emma's name stops appearing in firearm purchase records. The call ended. Perry sat in the surveilled apartment, knowing every word he'd spoken had been recorded, every move watched. But Randall had made his third mistake. He'd confirmed what Perry suspected. The aggressive response to cargo questions meant the gold smuggling theory was right. And if Perry could prove it, really prove it with hard evidence, he could bring down the entire operation. He just needed to get inside that cargo hold. Chapter 6. The Breach. Perry spent the next day playing his role perfectly. He conducted visible inspections of aircraft systems, reviewed pilot training records, assessed emergency procedures. Glenn and Catherine watched him carefully, but he gave them nothing to question. His official preliminary report submitted that evening was exactly what Randall wanted. Minor recommendations, overall positive assessment, confirmation that Transcontinental was on track for FAA certification. But at 2 a.m., Perry left his apartment. The facility's security was good, but not perfect. Perry had spent 20 years analyzing systems for weaknesses, aviation systems, safety systems, and now security systems. He'd identified the camera blind spots, the gap in the perimeter patrol pattern, the maintenance access door that didn't quite latch correctly. He moved through the darkness wearing black clothing he'd bought at a gas station in Phoenix. The desert night was cool, silent except for the wind. The hangar holding N641TC was locked, but Perry had watched Frank Alvarado's key code entry earlier. 4 digits. 72359. He punched it in. The lock clicked. Inside, the hangar was cavernous and dark. Perry used a penlight to navigate, keeping the beam low. The aircraft loomed above him, tail number barely visible in the dimness. He climbed the loading stairs to the cargo door. It was locked, but Perry had also watched the cargo crew. They used the same code as the hangar. The cargo door opened with a hydraulic hiss that seemed deafening in the quiet. Perry climbed inside. The cargo hold was empty now, cleaned as Catherine had promised. But Perry wasn't interested in what was there. He was interested in what had been there. He examined the floor, running his gloved hands over the surface. Frank had been right about the impact damage. Dents and scratches consistent with heavy containers being moved. Perry pulled out a small UV light and swept the hold. Chemical residue glowed faintly. He took samples with cotton swabs, sealed them in plastic bags. Then he noticed something else. The cargo tie-down points showed unusual wear patterns. Not the random distribution you'd expect from varied cargo, but specific points showing heavy repeated use. Perry measured the distances between the most worn tie-downs. 36 inches by 48 inches. Standard pallet dimensions. But the wear pattern suggested extremely heavy pallets. Medical supplies didn't weigh that much. Electronics didn't weigh that much. Gold did. Perry moved deeper into the hold, searching for anything else. That's when he found it. A small metal fragment wedged into a floor seam. He pried it loose with his pocket knife. Gold. He was sure of it. A small piece that had broken off during loading or unloading. Too small for the cleanup crew to notice. He pocketed it and continued his search. In the cockpit, Perry checked the flight computer's memory. Modern aircraft recorded everything: weight, fuel consumption, flight paths. He couldn't download the data without leaving traces, but he could photograph the screens. He pulled out his phone, airplane mode enabled to prevent any signal transmission, and started taking pictures of the flight data. That's when he heard voices outside. Perry froze. Through the cockpit window, he saw flashlight beams sweeping the tarmac. Security patrol, off schedule. He had maybe 30 seconds before they reached the hangar. Perry shut down the flight computer, closed the cockpit door, and moved quickly back through the cargo hold. He couldn't exit through the cargo door. The security team would see it open. But there was another way. Every aircraft had emergency exits. Perry found the aft emergency hatch, popped it open, and dropped 10 feet to the hangar floor. He rolled to absorb the impact, the metal fragment jabbing into his thigh. The hangar's side door was 20 feet away. Perry ran for it, slipped through, closed it silently behind him. Outside, he pressed against the building's shadow as the security team entered the hangar. He heard their radios crackle, heard them checking the aircraft. Had he left any traces? The cargo door had been closed. The emergency hatch would look suspicious, but maybe they'd assume it was a maintenance error. Perry moved quickly through the darkness back to his apartment, taking a different route, avoiding cameras. Inside, he locked the door and stood in the dark, heart pounding. He'd gotten what he needed: evidence of smuggling, a physical sample that could be tested, flight data showing the aircraft's actual routes and weights. But had he been seen? At 6 a.m., Perry's tablet chimed. Randall's face appeared, and Perry knew immediately that something had changed. Randall's expression was cold fury barely contained. "Did you really think I wouldn't know?" Perry's stomach dropped. "Know what?" The security team found the emergency hatch open on N6401TC. The cargo door access log shows an entry at 2:17 a.m. using Frank's code, and the flight computer's access log shows someone viewing flight data at 2:22 a.m. Randall's voice was deadly quiet. "Were you really stupid enough to break into my aircraft?" Perry kept his face neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about. I was asleep. The apartment cameras show you leaving at 1:47 a.m. and returning at 2:39 a.m. Where did you go, Perry?" Damn, he'd forgotten about the apartment surveillance. "I went for a walk. Couldn't sleep. The desert at night is—" "Don't." Randall cut him off. "I have you on thermal imaging leaving the hangar area at 2:35 a.m. I have the access logs. I have the evidence. You violated our agreement." Perry said nothing. There was nothing to say. "Here's what's going to happen," Randall continued. "You're going to give me your phone, your laptop, and any samples or evidence you took from that aircraft. You're going to delete every file from your encrypted folders. Yes, I know about those. And then you're going to complete your assignment exactly as instructed. And if I don't..." The screen split. On the left, Emma at school, visible through a window. On the right, a man Perry didn't recognize sitting in a car across the street from the school. That's Brett Henderson, former Special Forces, currently unemployed and very well paid to follow my instructions. Emma's school day ends at 3:15. Brett's instructions are simple. If I don't confirm by 3 p.m. that you've complied with my demands, he approaches Emma after school. He tells her that her father sent him to pick her up. She trusts adults, doesn't she? Most 9-year-olds do. Perry's vision went red. "You touch her." "I won't touch her. Brett will. He'll take her somewhere safe, somewhere you'll never find her. And then we'll negotiate your compliance from a position where I'm holding all the leverage. Or," Randall's expression softened artificially, "you can be smart. Give me what I want. Complete your work. And Emma stays safe, ignorant, happy." Perry's mind raced through options. Call the police? Randall had 3 hours head start and probably contingency plans. Go to the FBI? They'd need time to investigate, time Perry didn't have. Try to reach Emma first? He was in Arizona. She was in Colorado. He was trapped. What guarantee do I have that you'll stop after I complete the assignment? None, but you have my word that if you fight me, Emma disappears today. Choose wisely, Perry. You have until noon to comply. The call ended. Perry sat in the monitored apartment, cameras watching him, and felt the full weight of his helplessness. Randall had won. The evidence Perry had gathered, the samples, the photos, the fragment, it all meant nothing if Emma was in danger. He opened his laptop and began deleting files. But as his finger hovered over the delete key, a thought struck him. Randall wanted the evidence destroyed, which meant Randall was worried about it, which meant Perry had found something truly dangerous to the operation. And if Perry gave it up now, he'd have no leverage, nothing to fight back with. He needed to hide the evidence somewhere Randall couldn't find it, somewhere safe, somewhere he could retrieve it when the time was right. Perry looked at the clock. 8:47 a.m. He had 3 hours and 13 minutes. He grabbed his phone and made a call to the one person he trusted completely. "Katrina, I need you to do something for me. No questions, no hesitation. Emma's life depends on it." Chapter 7. The Gambit. Katrina picked up on the first ring. Perry spoke quickly, keeping his voice low despite knowing the apartment was monitored. "I'm sending you a package. Inside will be evidence of a federal smuggling operation. If anything happens to me or Emma, you take it directly to the FBI. Not the FAA, the FBI." "Perry, what?" "No questions. Just promise me you'll do it." A pause. "I promise." Perry had already prepared the package. The gold fragment, memory cards with photos, cotton swabs with residue samples, all sealed in a FedEx envelope. He'd addressed it to Katrina using her home address, not her work. At 9:15 a.m., Perry left the apartment carrying the package. Glenn intercepted him at the gate. "Where are you headed?" "FedEx office in town. Sending my preliminary equipment recommendations to a supplier." Perry showed him the envelope, addressed to a fabricated company name. But with Katrina's real address underneath a false label, he'd peel off in town. Glenn radioed someone, received confirmation, nodded. "Security will escort you. Company policy." Perfect. Perry had expected that. The drive to town took 40 minutes. The security guard, a quiet man named Jay Graves, followed Perry into the FedEx office, watched him drop the package in the slot. What Jay didn't see was Perry's hand brushing the false label as he released the envelope, removing it in one smooth motion. Back at the facility, Perry returned to his apartment and opened his laptop. Randall would be checking to see if he'd deleted the encrypted files. Perry had, but he'd created decoy files first, gigabytes of aviation safety documents and photos that looked substantive but contained nothing incriminating. The real encrypted folder, with copies of everything, was hidden in his laptop's recovery partition, accessible only through a specific boot sequence. At 11:30 a.m., Perry called Doris. "Is Emma there?" "She's at school." "Perry, what's going on? You're scaring me." "Listen carefully. Today when you pick Emma up from school, I need you to do something different. Park 2 blocks away, not in the normal pickup area. When Emma comes out, walk her to the car quickly. Don't talk to anyone. If any adult approaches you and claims to be a friend of mine, you run. You understand? You run." "Perry, there's a man watching the school. His name is Brett Henderson. Former military, dangerous. He's been told to approach Emma after school if I don't comply with certain demands. I need you to make sure he never gets close to her." Doris's voice went steel. "What does he look like?" "I don't know, but anyone who approaches Emma unexpectedly, you assume it's him. Doris, please, keep her safe." "I will, but Perry, you need to go to the police." "I can't, not yet. Just protect Emma today. Tomorrow, this will be over one way or another." At 11:55 a.m., Perry's tablet chimed. Randall appeared on screen. "Have you complied?" "Check my laptop. Files are deleted. Check the aircraft. I returned what I took." Perry had placed the sample bags back in the aircraft's cargo hold during the morning maintenance shift. When Frank was working and cameras were focused elsewhere, Randall's eyes flicked to another screen. "Confirmed. The laptop shows deletions at 9:03 a.m. The samples are back where you found them. Good. You're learning. Now call off your man at Emma's school." "Not yet. You still need to complete your final report. I want comprehensive safety protocols, full FAA compliance documentation, and your professional certification that Transcontinental is ready for operation. You have 72 hours. That wasn't the deal. You said, I said Emma would be safe if you complied. I didn't say when Brett would be called off. He stays in position until you finish your work. Insurance, Perry. Motivation to ensure you deliver exactly what I need." Perry's hands clenched. "You're changing the terms. I'm clarifying them. 3 days. Complete the assignment. Then Brett disappears, Emma's identity trail stops growing, and we part ways. You go back to your comfortable life. I get my airline operational. Everyone wins. What's to stop you from just killing me once I deliver the report?" Randall smiled. "Nothing, honestly, except that would be wasteful. You're a valuable asset, Perry. After Transcontinental is certified, I may need your services again. Future audits, expansion plans. I'd rather have you as a reluctant consultant than a dead enemy. Killing you creates problems, investigations, questions, loose ends. Keeping you compliant and useful is much cleaner. I want to talk to Emma. Verify she's safe." "No, you verify she's safe by completing your work. 3 days, Perry." The call ended. Perry sat in silence, understanding the chess game Randall was playing. Keep Emma as leverage indefinitely. Use Perry's expertise to build an untouchable smuggling operation, maintain control through fear and fabricated evidence. But Randall had made his fourth mistake. He'd given Perry 72 hours. That was enough time. Perry opened his laptop and began working on his official report. The document Randall expected. He made it comprehensive, professional, exactly what an FAA certification would require. Safety protocols, maintenance schedules, pilot training standards, emergency procedures. Everything perfect. But he also created a second document. A shadow report hidden in the same recovery partition as his encrypted files. This one detailed everything. The gold smuggling operation, the shell companies, the Mexican airfield connections, the fake cargo manifests, the accomplices inside the FAA, and most importantly, a comprehensive plan for how to bring down the operation without getting Emma killed. Perry had spent 20 years analyzing complex systems for failures. He knew how to find the critical failure point, the single element that, if removed, would cause the entire system to collapse. For Randall's operation, that critical point wasn't the aircraft or the smuggling routes or even the FAA corruption. It was Catherine Kelly. Perry had watched her carefully over the past 2 days. She was the logistics coordinator, the one who managed cargo operations, the one who knew where the gold came from and where it went. She was also the most recent addition to the team. Only 3 months with Transcontinental according to her personnel file, which meant she was the most likely to be persuaded to flip. Perry spent the next hour researching Catherine. Her background was impressive: military logistics, private sector cargo management, impeccable credentials. But buried in her history was something interesting. A brother who'd been arrested for securities fraud 5 years ago. He'd served 2 years, been released with monitoring conditions. Perry dug deeper using public records databases. Catherine's brother, Hugh Harden, was currently in violation of his parole. He'd left the state without permission, missed 2 check-ins with his parole officer, and he was living in Phoenix, Arizona, less than an hour from the Transcontinental facility. Perry smiled grimly. He'd found Catherine's pressure point. At 3:10 p.m., Perry's phone rang. Doris. Emma's safe. We're at my house. Nobody approached us. Perry exhaled relief. Thank you. Perry. There was a man watching the school. I saw him sitting in a gray sedan across the street. He watched the kids come out, seemed to be looking for someone specific. When we left through the back way, he didn't follow. That's him, Brett Henderson. What are you going to do? End this, but I need 3 more days. Can you keep Emma with you? Tell the school she's sick, family emergency, whatever works. Just keep her away from her normal routine. Done. But Perry, be careful. Whatever you're planning, be careful. At 6 p.m., Perry requested a meeting with Catherine. Glenn arranged it in the administrative building's conference room. Catherine entered with her usual professional demeanor. Mr. Bryan, Glenn said you had questions about cargo documentation? Perry waited until the door closed. I know about your brother. Catherine's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. Hugh Harden, currently violating parole by living in Phoenix under an assumed name. You're sending him money every month. I found the wire transfers in Transcontinental's financial records. You're hiding a fugitive. Now Catherine's eyes narrowed. You've been snooping in files you have no authorization to access. And you've been facilitating gold smuggling. I'd say we're both operating outside our job descriptions. Perry leaned forward. Here's what I know. Transcontinental is moving undeclared precious metals from Mexican mining operations to buyers in Central America. You coordinate the logistics. Randall provides the planes and the corrupt FAA contacts. The profit margins are enormous. The risks are significant. And you're all facing federal prison if this operation is exposed. Prove it. I don't need to prove it. I just need to create enough smoke that the FBI investigates. And once they start digging, they'll find your brother. They'll find the gold. They'll find everything. You'll be in prison. Hugh will be back in prison. Your family will be destroyed. Catherine stood. This conversation is over. Sit down. Perry's voice was steel. Because I'm about to offer you the only way out. She hesitated, then sat. Randall is using you, Perry continued. He used me. He's using everyone in this operation as expendable assets. When the heat comes, and it will come, he'll sacrifice all of you to protect himself. You think you're partners? You're not. Your insurance policies he'll cash in when necessary. What do you want? I want documentation. Real cargo manifests, real flight logs, real financial records showing the gold transactions. I want proof of Randall's operation that I can take to the FBI. In exchange, I'll make sure you and your brother get immunity deals. You testify against Randall, you walk away clean. Catherine laughed bitterly. You think the FBI will give me immunity? I'm guilty of federal smuggling, money laundering, and harboring a fugitive. They'll give you immunity if you deliver Randall Huffman on a silver platter. He's the big fish. You're just middle management. The FBI makes those trades all the time. Perry pulled out his phone, showed her a text from Katrina. FBI contact established. Agent willing to discuss immunity for insider testimony. Needs proof of operation first. Katrina had set it up in less than 6 hours, using her connections in the aviation world to reach a federal agent who specialized in aviation crimes. Catherine stared at the text. How do I know this isn't a trap? How do I know you won't just take the evidence and burn me anyway? Because Randall has my daughter as leverage. I can't move against him without getting her killed. But if the FBI raids this facility with solid evidence, if they arrest everyone simultaneously, Randall won't have time to hurt Emma. The only way to save my daughter is to destroy his operation completely and suddenly, and I can't do that without your help. Catherine was silent for a long moment. What about my brother? He comes in with you. Voluntary surrender, cooperation with investigators. The FBI won't care about his parole violation if he's helping bring down an international smuggling ring. Randall will kill us if he finds out. He won't find out. You keep playing your role. I'll keep writing my report. In 3 days, when I deliver my final documentation, the FBI will already have everything they need from you. They'll be ready to move immediately. Catherine looked at Perry with something like respect. You're either very smart or very stupid. I haven't decided which. Right now, I'm very desperate. And desperate people make things happen. She pulled out her phone. I'll need 24 hours to gather everything without raising suspicion. Can you wait that long? Emma's safe for now. I can wait. Catherine stood. If you're lying to me, if this is some kind of setup, I'll make sure Randall knows everything before the FBI even gets here. Fair enough. But I'm not lying. I just want my daughter safe and Randall Huffman in a federal prison. After Catherine left, Perry sat alone in the conference room and allowed himself a moment of hope. The gambit was in motion. Now, he just had to survive long enough to see it through. Chapter 8. The Convergence. 24 hours later, Catherine delivered. A USB drive appeared in Perry's apartment, slipped under the door while he was in the shower. No note, no explanation, just the drive. Perry plugged it into his laptop's air-gapped secondary partition, isolated from the network, impossible to trace. The drive contained everything: complete cargo manifests showing gold shipments, flight logs with actual routes and weights, financial records showing payments from Mexican mining companies, wire transfer receipts to Central American buyers, and most damning, communications between Randall and 3 FAA officials who'd been providing false certifications and looking the other way during inspections. Names, dates, specific bribes. It was a federal prosecutor's dream. Comprehensive, documented evidence of an international smuggling conspiracy. Perry copied everything to an encrypted cloud storage with multiple backups, then destroyed the USB drive by grinding it under his boot heel and flushing the pieces. Then he called Katrina using the secure app. Did you get the package I sent? Received and secured. Perry, the gold fragment you included tested positive. Nearly pure gold, with trace elements consistent with Mexican mining operations. Combined with the flight data and residue samples, it's solid evidence. I have more now, much more. Can your FBI contact move quickly once I deliver it? He says yes, but Perry, he needs to know the timeline. When is this happening? 48 hours? Tell him to have a full tactical team ready to raid the facility on my signal. I'll provide exact timing once I confirm the delivery schedule. Perry had been monitoring the facility's operations. A major shipment was scheduled for 2 days from now, the largest load yet according to the flight plans he'd seen. 6 tons of gold being moved from Mexico to Panama via Transcontinental's aircraft. If the FBI timed their raid to catch the planes loaded with gold, with documentation showing the full transaction, Randall's entire operation would collapse in a single coordinated strike. Perry, be careful. Randall's probably watching you even more closely now. He is, but he thinks I'm broken. He thinks I've given up. Perry looked at the camera in his smoke detector. Sometimes the best weapon is being underestimated. The next day, Perry delivered his final report to Randall. 300 pages of comprehensive safety protocols, maintenance schedules, pilot training requirements, emergency procedures, and FAA compliance documentation. It was professional, thorough, exactly what Randall had demanded. Randall reviewed it via video call, his expression satisfied. Excellent work, Perry. This is exactly what we needed. The FAA certification audit is scheduled for next week. With this documentation, we'll pass without issues. Does that mean we're done? You'll release Emma from whatever surveillance you have? Soon. First, I need you on site for the certification audit. When the FAA inspectors arrive, you'll be here to answer questions, verify your documentation. After we pass, after we're officially certified and operational, then we're done. That wasn't the agreement. The agreement was you'd help me get transcontinental operational. We're not operational until we pass FAA certification. Don't worry, Perry. 1 more week. Then you go home to Emma. I run my airline, and we both forget this unpleasantness. Perry clenched his jaw. Fine. 1 more week. Good. Oh, and Perry, I'm moving up the timeline on our major shipment. Instead of tomorrow, it's happening tonight. I need you to be on site to verify the aircraft's weight distribution is within safety parameters for the cargo load. Just one final technical check before we launch. Perry's blood went cold. Tonight. The FBI wouldn't be ready tonight. Katrina's contact had said 48 hours minimum to organize a tactical team. I can do that. Excellent. The aircraft will be loaded starting at 10 p.m. I need your sign-off by midnight. After the call ended, Perry immediately contacted Katrina. They're moving the shipment to tonight. The FBI needs to raid now or we lose this chance. Perry, the agent said they need time to coordinate. They're talking about multi-agency involvement. FBI, DEA, maybe even ICE for the international components. They can't just... If they wait, the gold moves. Randall disappears into the wind. The evidence becomes historical. We need them there tonight or this whole plan falls apart. A long pause. I'll try. No promises. Perry hung up and considered his options. If the FBI couldn't move in time, he'd need to sabotage the operation himself, damage the aircraft, disable the cargo loading equipment, something that would prevent the shipment from departing. But Randall was watching him constantly. Any obvious sabotage would be traced back to Perry immediately, and Emma would pay the price. He needed something subtle, something that would look like mechanical failure. At 8 p.m., Perry made his way to the maintenance hangar. Frank Alvarado was doing final checks on the aircraft. Perry, Glenn said you'd be here to verify the weight distribution. That's right. How's the plane looking? Solid. I've done a complete pre-flight. All systems nominal. Frank lowered his voice. This is a big load tonight. Whatever they're moving, it's heavy. Pushing the aircraft's cargo capacity to the limit. Perry examined the cargo loading plan. 6 pallets, each weighing approximately 2,000 pounds. 12,000 pounds total, within the aircraft's certified limits, but barely. Frank, if something were to fail during loading, what would be the most likely failure point? Frank's eyes narrowed. Why? Just curious. Professional assessment. Frank studied Perry for a moment, then answered quietly. The cargo loading hydraulics. Their older equipment maintained well enough, but they're operating at the edge of their capacity for loads this heavy. If the pressure regulator failed, the loading platform would collapse. No damage to the aircraft, no injuries, just a disabled loading system that would take hours to repair. How would that regulator fail? Overheating. If someone were to bypass the cooling system, run the hydraulics at full pressure for an extended cycle, the regulator would overheat and fail safe to shut down. Perry nodded slowly. Purely theoretical question. How would someone bypass the cooling system? Frank pulled out a grease-stained notebook, sketched a quick diagram. There's a coolant flow valve here. It's manual, controlled by a simple turn valve. Close it, the system overheats in about 10 minutes of operation, but Perry, if you're thinking, I'm not thinking anything. Just understanding the system's better for my report. Frank tore out the diagram page and handed it to Perry. Sometimes systems fail. Sometimes maintenance issues appear at the worst times. Sometimes people get lucky. Perry pocketed the diagram. Thanks, Frank. At 9:45 p.m., Perry walked the facility's perimeter, appearing to be conducting a general safety inspection. He ended up near the cargo loading equipment, alone in the darkness. He found the coolant flow valve Frank had described. It was exactly where the diagram indicated, accessible but not obvious. Perry hesitated. If he closed this valve, the loading equipment would fail. The shipment would be delayed. But Randall would investigate, would potentially trace the sabotage back to Perry, unless someone else had a reason to sabotage the loading. Perry pulled out his phone and called Glenn Flowers. Glenn, Perry Bryan, I'm doing a final safety walkthrough, and I noticed something concerning with the cargo loading hydraulics. The coolant reservoir looks low. Has that system been serviced recently? Glenn's voice was tense. It should have been serviced last week. Are you saying it wasn't? I'm saying the coolant level looks critically low. If you run that system under heavy load tonight, you risk overheating and failure. Might want to check it before loading starts. Damn it. I'll send a maintenance crew right now. Perry hung up and waited. Within 5 minutes, 2 mechanics arrived with toolboxes and flashlights. They found the coolant reservoir, which Perry had carefully drained into a container. He then hid nearby and confirmed it was indeed critically low. How did this happen? One mechanic muttered. This was full when I checked it 3 days ago. Leak somewhere in the system, the other replied. We'll need to find it, refill, and test before we can load cargo. That's at least 2 hours of work. Perfect. Perry's phone rang. Randall, furious. What the hell is going on? I'm told the loading equipment is down. Coolant leak in the hydraulic system. Maintenance issue. Frank's team is working on it, but they estimate 2 hours minimum before it's operational. 2 hours. We have a departure window. If we miss it, Randall cut himself off. Can't the cargo be loaded manually? Not safely. 12,000 pounds distributed across 6 pallets? You'd need a forklift, and even then the weight distribution would be risky without the hydraulic platform's precision. You want me to sign off on a safety check? You need to do this right. Randall was silent for a moment. Fine, but Perry, if I find out this is sabotage, if I discover you had anything to do with this delay, check the maintenance logs. The coolant should have been serviced last week. This is a facility management failure, not sabotage. The call ended. Perry checked the time, 10:23 p.m. He'd bought 2 hours minimum, maybe 3 if the mechanics found additional issues. He texted Katrina, shipment delayed at least 2 hours, FBI needs to move now. If they raid by 1 a.m., they'll catch the operation with the gold still on site. The response came 15 minutes later. Agent says they can have a team there by 12:30 a.m., coordinating with local FBI field office. Perry, once this starts, there's no stopping it. Are you sure? Perry thought about Emma, safe with Doris but living under Randall's shadow. He thought about Frank and the other workers who'd been pulled into this operation without understanding its true nature. He thought about the corrupt FAA officials who'd betrayed their duty for bribes. I'm sure. Tell them to move. At 11:47 p.m., Perry was in the administrative building reviewing documentation when he heard vehicles approaching. Multiple vehicles. Through the window, he saw black SUVs rolling through the security gate. FBI insignia. Tactical team members deploying with practiced efficiency. Glenn Flowers ran past Perry's office, reaching for his radio. We've got federal agents at the gate. Lock down the facility. But it was too late. The FBI had already breached the perimeter, had already blocked all exits, had already surrounded every building. Perry stepped outside and watched as agents swarmed the hangars, the aircraft, the administrative buildings. Someone shouted orders through a megaphone. Workers were being detained, hands on heads, orderly and controlled. Catherine Kelly emerged from the cargo building, hands raised, walking calmly toward the FBI agents. She'd kept her word. Perry's tablet chimed. Randall calling from whatever remote location he'd been monitoring the operation from. You son of a bitch. You set me up. You threatened my daughter. You used her identity to manipulate me. You thought I'd just roll over and help you build a criminal enterprise? Perry's voice was cold. You made a mistake, Randall. You brought me inside your operation. And once I was inside, I found all your weaknesses. The FBI has nothing. I'll be out in 24 hours. My lawyers will. The FBI has comprehensive documentation of your gold smuggling operation. They have financial records. They have communications with corrupt FAA officials. They have testimony from Catherine Kelly, who's cooperating in exchange for immunity. They have Frank Alvarado, who documented every questionable maintenance request you ever made. And they have me, willing to testify about everything I witnessed. Randall's face went white. Emma, the evidence I've built against her is going to disappear. Because the FBI is very interested in your identity fabrication scheme. They're seizing your servers right now. Every fake police report, every fraudulent document, every piece of manufactured evidence against a 9-year-old girl, it's all going to be exposed as part of your criminal conspiracy. Emma will be cleared. You'll be charged with identity theft, fraud, and child endangerment on top of everything else. You're finished in this industry. No one will hire you after this. Maybe, but Emma will be safe. And you'll be in federal prison. That's a trade I'll make every single time. Perry ended the call. An FBI agent approached him. Mr. Bryan, I'm Special Agent Isaac Charles. We need your full statement. Of course, but first, there's a man named Brett Henderson watching my daughter's school in Denver. He's been instructed to kidnap her if Randall gives the order. You need to pick him up immediately. Agent Charles spoke into his radio, relaying the information. Already being handled. We have agents en route to your daughter's location and Henderson's last known position. Perry felt the weight lift from his shoulders. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're going to be cooperating with our investigation for months. This operation has international components. We'll need detailed testimony, documentation reviews, possibly courtroom appearances. Whatever you need. Just keep my daughter safe. She's our priority. Perry watched as agents led Glenn Flowers out of the facility in handcuffs. Frank Alvarado was being questioned but not detained. His cooperation and documentation had apparently satisfied investigators that he was a reluctant participant, not a willing conspirator. Catherine emerged from an FBI mobile command vehicle, accompanied by her brother Hugh. Both looked exhausted but relieved. She caught Perry's eye, nodded once. They'd both bet everything on bringing down Randall. And they'd won. Chapter 9. The Aftermath. 3 months later, Perry sat in a Denver coffee shop watching Emma play with her friends in a park across the street. She was laughing, carefree, completely ignorant of the nightmare that had nearly consumed her life. Katrina slid into the seat across from him. How's she doing? Good. Better than good. She doesn't know any of it happened. As far as Emma's concerned, she just spent a weird week staying with Aunt Doris while I was on a business trip. And you? Perry sipped his coffee. I'm done with aviation consulting. Too many ghosts. I'm thinking about teaching, maybe university level, aviation safety courses. Something where I can make a difference without the stress. Katrina smiled. You made a difference, Perry. Randall's operation would have kept running for years if you hadn't stopped it. We stopped it. You, me, Frank, Catherine. Team effort. Speaking of which, did you hear? Catherine got full immunity. She's working for the FBI now, helping them identify other aviation smuggling operations. Hugh's doing community service instead of prison time. They both came out okay. Perry nodded. And these FAA officials? 3 arrests so far, more expected. The investigation uncovered a whole network of corrupt inspectors and administrators. The FAA is conducting internal reviews across multiple regions. What about Randall? Katrina's expression darkened. Trial's set for next month. He's facing 47 federal charges. Prosecutors are asking for 30 years minimum. His lawyers are trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the feds aren't interested. They want to make an example. Good. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Emma climb a jungle gym. You saved her, Katrina said quietly. You were outmatched, outgunned, completely trapped. But you found a way. I had help. I couldn't have done it without you. You would have found another way. That's who you are, Perry. You solve problems. You find the weaknesses in systems and you exploit them. Perry smiled grimly. Randall's system had a lot of weaknesses. He was so focused on controlling me that he didn't realize I was studying his operation, learning how it worked, finding the pressure points. Catherine was the key, wasn't it? Flipping her. She was the newest member, the most vulnerable, the one with the most to lose if the operation collapsed. Randall probably thought he had her locked in with her brother's situation, but he underestimated how much she valued her brother's freedom. When I offered her a way to protect Hugh and get out clean, she took it. And the maintenance sabotage? Perry shrugged. That was just buying time. Frank's diagram, my conversation with Glenn, the drained coolant reservoir, all of it created the illusion of a mechanical failure while delaying the shipment long enough for the FBI to arrive. If they'd shown up after the gold departed, we'd have lost the strongest evidence. You're a scary man when you're motivated, Perry Bryan. I had the best possible motivation. My daughter's life. Across the street, Emma waved at Perry. He waved back, watching her bright smile. The identity theft angle, Emma's fake records. How long did it take to clear all that? Katrina asked. 6 weeks. The FBI's cybercrimes unit went through everything Randall had created. Police reports, credit card applications, the FAA pilot certificate, all of it. They documented each instance as evidence of Randall's conspiracy, then systematically expunged Emma's name from every database. She's clean now. No trace of any of it. And she really doesn't know? I told her there was a security issue at my work. Some bad people were trying to cause problems, but everything was resolved. She accepted it. 9-year-olds are remarkably resilient when adults handle things correctly. Katrina stood. I should get back to work. But Perry, if you ever need anything, anything at all, you call me. Same to you. And Kat, thank you for everything. After she left, Perry sat alone with his coffee and his thoughts. The past 3 months had been grueling. Depositions, FBI interviews, grand jury testimony. He'd spent countless hours helping federal investigators understand the technical aspects of Randall's operation, explaining how the fake documentation worked, how the smuggling routes were structured, how the corrupt FAA officials had facilitated everything. But it was over now. Randall was in federal custody awaiting trial. His accomplices were facing their own charges. The operation was dismantled, and Emma was safe. Perry's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, but curiosity made him open it. "Mr. Bryan, this is Frank Alvarado. I wanted to thank you for including my cooperation in your FBI testimony. The prosecutors decided not to charge me with any crimes. I'm working for a legitimate airline now. Clean operation, good people. I owe you one. If you ever need anything, I mean anything, you call me." Frank Perry smiled and saved the number. Then another text, this one from Catherine. "Randall's legal team just made another plea offer. Prosecutors rejected it. Trial's happening. He's going down hard. Justice." Perry texted back, "Good. He earned it." He finished his coffee and walked across the street to the park. Emma ran over, breathless and happy. "Dad, watch me on the swings. I can go really high now." "Show me." He pushed her on the swings, listening to her laughter, feeling the simple normalcy of a father spending time with his daughter. No threats, no manipulation, no fear, just life. As Emma pumped her legs, soaring higher, Perry thought about Randall sitting in a federal holding cell, watching his empire collapse, facing decades in prison. Randall had thought he'd perfectly trapped Perry, had thought he'd found the ultimate leverage, had thought Perry would be too afraid, too compliant, too broken to fight back. But Randall had forgotten something crucial. The same analytical mind that made Perry excellent at identifying safety failures also made him excellent at identifying operational weaknesses. The same attention to detail that let Perry spot forged maintenance logs also let Perry spot vulnerabilities in criminal conspiracies. And the same protective instinct that made Perry a good father made him absolutely relentless when his daughter was threatened. Randall had picked the wrong target. He'd thought he was playing chess against a timid consultant. Instead, he'd been playing against someone who understood systems, who could work within constraints, who could find the one move that would bring down the entire board. And Perry had checkmated him perfectly. "Dad, did you see how high I went?" Perry smiled at his daughter, at her joy, at her innocence preserved. "I saw, sweetheart. You went really high. I'm going to go even higher next time. I believe you." Because Perry had learned something important through this nightmare. Sometimes the people who seem trapped, who seem powerless, who seem completely outmatched, sometimes those people are the most dangerous opponents. Not because of strength or resources or connections, but because they have something worth fighting for. And they'll find a way to win no matter how impossible the odds. Perry pushed Emma higher on the swings, watching her soar into the autumn sky, and knew with absolute certainty that he'd do it all again if he had to. Some battles are worth fighting. Some risks are worth taking, and some victories are worth any price. Emma was safe. Randall was destroyed. Justice had prevailed. For Perry Bryan, that was all that mattered.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.